like to officially call this meeting to order. Apologize, we're running a few minutes late here, but this shouldn't be that long of a meeting. Anyway, it's not a huge agenda, but we have some important items. So good afternoon. Welcome to your Innovation, Technology, and General Services Committee. I'm joined by my colleague, Councilmember O'Farrell, and Councilmember Bonin will be joining us a little bit later. He's at another committee hearing. Let's start. Mr. Villanueva, are there any general public comment cards?
We do not have any, sir. No cards.
Okay, great. I'm going to recommend that items 2, 3, 5, and 7 be approved on consent.
No objection.
So, hearing no objection, that'll be the order. Items 2, 3, 5, and 7 are approved on consent. And that brings us to item number 1.
Okay.
Mr. Villanueva, if you would
yes, sir.
please go ahead and read that.
Item number 1 is a verbal report from the General Manager of the General Services Department relative to the top 10 department priorities.
Mr. Rustler, always good to see you here. Thank you for being here.
Okay, the first item we have is the VMS system. On April 23rd, GSD reported to ITGSD committee with an implementation plan. And on May 21st, the City Council authorized the controller to reappropriate about $3.1 million in UB in the 2014-2015 budget. And also, we plan in August to come back with a full report to this committee to implement this particular upgrade. Once the additional funding is approved, the project would take approximately about 3 years. The first year, phase 1 will be GSD, phase 2 will be the fire department, and phase 3 will be the police department. As it relates to SMS, $4 million was placed in the UB.
Before you get to that, as we go through each one, if we have questions,
sure,
if that's okay.
That's perfect.
Just kind of go through it. So this is the item, just to remind everyone that it wasn't funded, but the council found the funding for in the budget process. And my question was about the detailed report, and I believe you said it's going to come exactly when that's scheduled to happen. Is that's going to be in August?
In August.
Okay, great. That was
so GSD and the fire department and LAPD will report in August exactly the total and full implementation plan of the program and what the total funding will need to be appropriated to implement the entire program. The good thing is it's a 3-year program, so we can phase the funding in.
Great, thank you. Moving along, thank you.
As it relates to SMS, the 2014-2015 budget includes $4 million in UB for the SMS system, and we will plan, hopefully very soon, to report back to this committee concerning exactly how we want that $4 million appropriated, what account, what department, and I think about $345,000 will be going to GSD for 5 positions. About $400,000 will be going to ITA for 2 positions and some expense funding. And another $97,000 will be going to controller for 1 position, and about $3.1 million will be allotted to the contractor.
And this will be enough to get us through year 14-15?
Yeah, this phase of it, but the overall, I think the entire project will cost you probably about $19.2 million.
But in terms of, are we losing anything in terms of the phase? Because of budgetary reasons, we had to reduce it to this amount for this year. Do we lose anything by phasing it the way that we're phasing it, or are we still on track?
I think it might slow the implementation down somewhat, but I think the good part is that we do have funding, and we can start off with it, and hopefully it might delay it a little bit, but the important thing is that additional funding will be needed in order to complete it in time, but I think the implementation will be a little late than what we anticipated based on the funding that was allotted in the budget for this year.
So you're thinking 3.5 years versus 3 years or something?
Yeah, it should take less than 3 years. This is for the SMS, not for
right. So FMS. Yeah, so what's the total timeline?
I'm not sure. I think maybe it's a year or 2. But the the issue is having the funding to get implemented. Where it was fully funded in the budget, maybe we'll be able to get close for fiscal year 2015-16. But the important thing is the funding is needed in order to move the phase. But we're very happy that money was placed in that, and we can move forward with the phase that we do have. What I can do in the next meeting is to report back in detail what this $4 million, when it comes to timeline and project or tasks that should be done with this $4 million was allotted in the, for 14-15.
That'd be great. Questions on that? Okay, moving along.
For the automated visitors parking, GSD has created logins and passwords for over 500 authorized users. The vendor has resolved software issues related to viewing features and displays of parking permit information. The vendor is reconfiguring the software so it will allow 40 users at one time to place requests for parking. And because of that, the start date for this program will be August 15, because we figured that initially the software could only handle 10 at one time. Because of the volume that we have, we feel that we need the ability, at least to have the ability to have 40 users on the system at one time.
Questions on this item?
Quick question on this one, Mr. Rooster. Who are the authorized users?
Usually, each department allots certain individuals or assigns certain individuals within their department, within their council office. They're only the authorized individuals to authorize visitors parking within their department or either within their council
So
office.
it's city employees and not visitors?
Right, no,
Okay.
city employees.
Thank you.
Okay, when it comes to the number 4 equipment upgrade at parking garages, the equipment at Lot 2 has been installed and functional. We've ordered the signage for the LA Mall garage to inform our customers that the automation and direct them to the pay stations for payments. And this signage should be all completed by this month. And the installation of the pay stations, the entry lane tickets, gates, and exit lanes should be completed by this month. And we plan to have the testing, training, and rollout completed by the end of this month.
Great. Congratulations on that.
Okay, thank you. Number 5 is the Energy Conservation Project funding. GSD received $4 million in CIP funding for the energy conservation projects for next fiscal year. GSD has identified 10 city buildings to participate in the LAPD Energy Efficiency Technical Assistance Program. And once the audits are completed, GSD will receive a detailed, comprehensive report which includes an analysis for electrical, gas, and water consumption, and a list of potential efficiency measures ranked by shortest to longest payback periods will be provided. Any questions on that item?
So all of these pay themselves back over time. I mean,
Yes.
these are all smart investments,
Correct.
right? And sort of it's just a matter of how much outlay for how much
Correct.
return. What's the average payback?
Depending
time?
if it's a situation where it's lighting, it could be 3 to 4 or 5 years, where if you're dealing with HVAC or chillers, it takes as much between 15 to 20 years.
And is any of that payback able to be put back into further investments? There's no way to actually, you capture that on the individual project level, right? But
what we do in some of the projects, when we do some of the modifications or energy conservation, we get rebates from the Department of Water and Power, and we take those rebates and reinvest them into additional projects. Okay, the energy conservation project implementation, as of this year, we have completed 10 projects, and we have 2 more will be completed by the end of June. That will be Foothill Police Station and the Little Tokyo Library. And we have Barnesdale Arts Center. We'll roll that over to 14-15 because the scope of the project was expanded, and it will be included for next year. Any questions on energy conservation projects? Okay, number 8, which is reverse auctions. As of today,
you skipped 7, the Wilshire,
excuse me,
the repavement project?
I'm sorry. The following portions of these projects will be completed during the period, which was the concrete lane with the curb on the north side of Wilshire Boulevard, and GSD standards provided all of the testing for the concrete, also for the asphalt that was provided for this project. And as our part of GSD, everything is on time, is on schedule. Back to reverse auction, we are anticipating that that since January 2011, that we've saved about $15.5 million in reverse auctions. For this year only, 13-14, we're saving probably about $10.6 million, and most of that savings became from the copier contract, and we are looking at additional 3 that we will schedule for this year, and the procurement staff is currently working to do market research to find additional reverse auctions for 14-15. Emergency generators at critical fuel locations. We have about 12 locations that we're working on.
Just back on the reverse auction.
Uh-huh.
It's great. I mean, we're saving $15 million. Any idea, are we going to see that same amount of savings as we bring in more and more of these, or have we pretty much gotten the low-hanging fruit and the next ones are going to be of a smaller scale, or is it?
I think, especially for this year, because of the copier, because of the size of that particular contract, you have close to 1,500 copiers that we're changing in and out. And you probably are not going to see something about $10.6 million annually. That's not going to happen. So that's one of the big ones. You're probably going to have probably between 2, 3, 4 million, probably at the most each year, just depending on what's coming up. But our vendor we're working with is going through all our contracts and see which particular commodity suits better for reverse auctions. The emergency generators at critical fuel sites, we've was giving funding in 13-14 for 12 sites, and everything seems to be on schedule, and we should be complete all those projects by June of this year. And any questions on that particular one? Okay, on the Verdugo Peak Communications Tower, the tower construction plans permits are complete. The tower fabrication is 100% complete. The tower foundation work is complete, and the overall project is about 70% complete. However, we anticipate to complete this project by the end of this month.
Great. Well, no questions there. Thank you very much. We very much appreciate the top 10 report. It does give us a real good sense of what's going on, and it's you're doing great work, and we appreciate that. So
Thank you very much.
thank you. Before we move on to the next item is item 3. I've been informed that we took items 2, 5, and 7, did them on consent, but I've been informed that on items 5 and 7, GSD has amendments for each of those items. I still plan to get into them sequentially, but just as a formality, what I'd like to do then is vote on reconsideration of those 2 items so that we can take them up in their due course. Without objection, we vote to reconsider items 5 and 7, and we'll get to them as we move forward, and we'll take item number 3 next.
Item 4, sir.
What's that?
Item number 4?
Do we do 3 on consent too?
Yeah.
Look at that, okay. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Item 4. Mr.
I-
Villanueva.
Item 4 is a motion by Council Members Bonin and Cedillo relative to a grant of a revocable easement to utilize the city-owned lot located at 17916 Castellamare Drive in the Pacific Palisades.
And any cards on this item?
No, sir.
I am Michael Kaplan with the City Attorney's Office. Over the years, we had a number of landslides in the Castellamare area, and there were a number of properties that were obtained through settlement, and basically the idea was that where you have these properties that are having continuing problems with earth movement, that it's better to just buy them and keep them out of circulation so we don't constantly have to pay money on the same property. So there are a whole bunch of these properties over in Castellamare Drive, and Ms. Bassendorf lives next door to one of them. And I think over time, the plan is to do some additional remedial work out there to stabilize that area, but it's not known exactly when that's going to happen. And so what Ms. Bassendorf has asked is she can have a revocable easement to use a portion of a vacant lot. And the requirement will be that she's only allowed to put down rocks and fencing. There won't be any irrigation or any kind of planting or any kind of structures on that, because we don't want to do anything which would present a problem from a geotechnical standpoint. So we've had meetings with the council office, Bureau of Engineering, and with Dave and myself. And so what we have proposed is a motion to permit GSD to go ahead and prepare a revocable easement. An evaluation will be made as to what this revocable easement is worth, and then we will go ahead and finalize it.
Dave Roberts, property manager for General Services. I have had no problem with any of the statements that made by Mr. Kaplan, and we are consistently trying to use these properties in a best way for the city. The key will be to establish a proper compensation to the city for the use of the property, which will be a nominal amount, since there'll be no development on the property outside of just landscaping purposes.
I mean, the other thing is I think there'll be a benefit to the city in that by putting rocks and everything down there, it'll eliminate some of the fire danger next to her property, which is probably a good thing, and it will provide her with some additional security, which is in everybody's interest.
Mr. Bonin, as the maker of the motion, you want to have any particular questions?
No questions whatsoever. I think staff has done good work. This is the right thing to do. Strongly encourage that we allow this to move forward as quickly as possible.
And you were saying that the rocks and the fence, that you don't want to do anything that would have a geotechnical aspect or give us any additional liabilities.
Correct.
And rocks and fencing don't.
Right. The only thing that really would pose concern is something that would put a lot of weight on the property or something where you're irrigating the property. I mean, water is really the prime cause of landslides, and we won't have any irrigation or planting or anything on this particular site.
The rocks will actually enhance the land.
Just having images of some of the things we've heard in Budget Committee of the lawsuits that we get from when the city does, it seems like does one little thing, and then something happens, and then, of course, we're the ones on the hook for it. But I want this to move forward, and I'm hearing from you that that's not a concern from a legal perspective.
I'm usually the one handling those lawsuits, so I always run this stuff by our geotechnical engineers before we do anything.
And Mr. Chair, just out of curiosity, will you be entering into an MOU or a hold harmless agreement with the property owner?
Yeah, I mean, that would be part of the revocable easement.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So without objection, we will continue the motion, direct GSD in consultation with the city attorney to report on the appropriate course of action and documents required to grant the use of the city-owned lot by a private property owner.
Sure.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is item 5. That's right, because we have a potential amendment there. Is that right?
Yeah. Item number 5 is an item that was continued from February 25, 2014. It's a General Services Department report relative to a request for revised license for City Attorney and Police Department at the Metropolitan Courthouse located at 1945 South Hill Street, Los Angeles, California.
Good afternoon, Melody McCormick, GSD Real Estate Services. We have a quick amendment on this report since it left MFC, and that is that the square footage under the agreement is actually 7,080 square feet, not 7,064 as written in the report. So we're just asking for your approval to amend the report to reflect that correct amount, and also request that your approval goes forthwith.
Yeah, it was just a mistake. We didn't misplace the other 14,000.
No, it's not misplaced. So it was just a remeasurement, differential between their architect and our architect. So.
Okay. Well, without objection, seems pretty reasonable. So ordered. Guess we'll move to the next item.
Item number 6 is a General Services Department report relative to a request for authorization to negotiate and execute a new lease with Senor Fish, Inc. to operate a restaurant in the retail space located at 155 South Main Street.
Okay. GSD conducted a competitive RFP process for this lease. It was released in January. We developed a panel consisting of staff from the CAO, GSD, and LAPD. who reviewed all of the proposals. The selected proposer is choosing to take the entire space, so that is the best value for the city at $2 a square foot. It's going to generate $134,000 in revenue back to the city annually, and so we're asking the committee for approval to go forward with this lease for Senor Fish.
Any questions or objections?
Great fish tacos, go.
Okay, well, there we have it. So without objection, we will approve great fish tacos. And that item as written. Okay, item 7.
Item number 7 is a General Services Department report relative to a request for authorization to negotiate and execute an easement for the Los Angeles Federal Credit Union to place electronic kiosks at various city locations for use by city employees.
We have a quick technical amendment to this report as well. The city attorney at MFC has advised that they would like to have the mechanism be changed from an easement to a revocable license. That basically gives the city more flexibility in the future to cancel the agreement if it needed to.
Is there any downside to doing it that way?
No. It's actually an upside to just having a revocable license in place as opposed to an easement. Either way, it provides the credit union with the opportunity to replace those paper kiosks with an electronic version.
Without objection, so ordered. We'll move forward on that item. And last but not least, we have item 8.
Item number 8 is a General Services Department report relative to a request for authorization to negotiate and execute an office space lease for the Department of Transportation at West Los Angeles Adjudication Office at 1575 Westwood Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 924.
Okay, the DOT adjudication office at the location it's currently at, the landlord was not willing to renew the lease because they want to actually look at a different type of project for that location. DOT had also requested that we look at placing them in a space next to their contractor, and so our leasing group was able to find a 5,000 square foot space at this location. We'll be taking 2,500 square feet of it. Xerox Parking Solutions will be negotiating and establishing a lease of their own. This will be much more convenient for the staff and especially more convenient to members of the public because they won't have to go to 2 different locations to resolve any issues. So the actual lease will generate cost savings to the leasing account of approximately $32,000 a year. And we're requesting permission to go forward and work on executing this lease on behalf of DOT.
Questions on that? You have is this the one where you have a public building nearby, or is that?
Right. I know a question had come up about the West LA Municipal Building. That particular site has actually been identified by the CAO Strategic Planning Group as a site for economic development. And so there was a discussion that we really wouldn't want to establish a lease for DOT and then have to move them out in a few years when the economic development project gets going.
So we're not moving in there, not because it's not cost effective, but because there is a projected or other use of that space?
Correct. The CAO Strategic Planning Group has indicated that the West LA Municipal Building is slated for economic development.
There are tenants already in that building.
The West LA Municipal Building?
Yeah.
So currently, yes. At the point, I don't have a lot of details. I know the CAO Strategic Planning Group, Josh Romer, is here if you'd like to get additional information about that project.
Just trying to, if we're not doing something that's more cost effective because of an assumption that we're making about CAO's strategic plan, I guess I want to have confidence that this is real and that we are making the smartest decision for the city.
Good afternoon, Chair, Council members. Josh Romer with the CAO's Office, Asset Management Strategic Planning Unit. The Strategic Planning Unit was formed last year, basically to kind of create an economic development capacity within the city of Los Angeles related to the use of its own properties, which we haven't necessarily had in the past. Formerly, the city tended to defer to CRA for a lot of these sort of functions. So my unit is one of a host of initiatives that the city is embarking upon to basically enhance our own economic development capacity. For properties at the West LA Civic Center, it's our intent to work with the council district and determine their priorities and basically identify which are really good properties that could basically have use beyond just municipal uses. So in Council District 11, we've been working with the staff of Councilmember Bonin to discuss different outcomes for what could happen on this property. Very large property, excellent location. It has a number of municipal uses that are very well used, well located for the community. Some of them are in not the best condition. There's also a lot, I'm being charitable, and there's also a lot of surface parking, and there is an adjacent state courthouse that's disused, and the state has no plan to reopen it or any plans for how to dispose of it on their own. So the general plan we've been discussing with the council members' staff has been to do an open community sort of process to determine what the district's interests are, and come up with a plan that would combine enhanced new municipal uses with potentially private development. That could be housing, it could be office, it could be tech sort of oriented space, with the idea that we would be able to maintain and even improve municipal uses on the site, but also generate some economic development benefits for the city, sales revenues, tax revenues. So we're pretty early in the process. We're just starting to engage in this. But given that this is the direction that we're looking at with the council member staff on the site, we didn't think it made sense to move a new city lease, pay for the cost of the move, and to do improvements on a site that we very possibly could be relocating people out of a few years from now.
Okay, so it's about, because what I didn't hear was, this could potentially be one of those uses that you talked about, the Department of Transportation, when you say new municipal uses at that facility. I guess I would also hate for them to move somewhere else, and then for a decision to be made that, hey, we want to have more new municipal uses here. Why don't we take the Department of Transportation from where they are and move them here when we could have done it the first time? But it doesn't sound, I mean, you know the facility, I don't even know, don't have a visual on it, so maybe I'm speaking here, but that would be a very bad outcome if we were to allow them to move somewhere else and then decide it's better off in the municipal building.
Oh, yeah, I understand your point. I mean, I think that the proposed redevelopment of the site would be beyond a rehabilitation of the building. It would involve moving everybody out. So if we were going to move DOT in now and then decided 2 or 3 years from now we were going to be able to have an economic development, a public-private joint venture, we'd have to relocate everybody again and then relocate them back into the new facility. Looking at the number of municipal facilities in different locations, not just on the site but around there, I think there are a lot of different city services that are provided within a mile or so of the site that could be eventually consolidated on a redeveloped site. DOT is one of those possibilities. It's not the only one or by any means the most significant one.
And so you're not just talking about a little rehab here and there, you're talking about a major rehaul.
To paraphrase George Bush the First, this building cannot stand.
Right.
It needs to be gone.
Yeah.
To move DOT into the space currently would require significant tenant improvement work, which would be a cost to the city. I know you're laughing at the word significant now. The value of this particular lease, not only is it a cost savings, but the landlord is going to build out the space to DOT's preference. So they're absorbing the cost of all the TIs in the current space.
I regularly describe this building as one that was designed by somebody that Khrushchev was punishing for a lack of imagination and creativity. It is perhaps the ugliest building in CD11, and the footprint of it.
Don't say that because then it'll get on the historic site list.
It's not old enough yet. It also has such potential to be a transformative neighborhood place for West LA. Some of the city facilities block off access to a courtyard and a band shell that could be moved up into a beautiful pedestrian plaza with both municipal and private uses behind it. It's something that actually Cindy Misikowski started working on, and then Bill started working on, and I'm determined to get this damn thing done.
So it does date back to the Soviet era.
Yes.
Well, in that case, I'm going to recommend moving forward as amended. And without objection, that is the order. And that takes us, I believe, to conclusion. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, then. This meeting is officially adjourned.